My name is Chetna and I welcome you to today's event, Nyaya Nirmaan, Reimagining India's Legal Foundations for Viksit Bharat 2047. Presented to you by General Counsels Association of India, the unified voice of in-house legal counsels across India. As India approaches its centenary of independence, the legal and regulatory framework must evolve to support its ambitions of becoming a developed, inclusive, and globally competitive nation. Today's event aims to foster a robust dialogue among jurists, policymakers, industry leaders, and legal professionals on the foundational legal reforms required for India's transformation into a Viksit Bharat by 2047.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the General Counsels Association of India, it is my privilege to welcome you all to Nyaya Nirmaan, Reimagining India's Legal Foundations for Viksit Bharat at 2047.
I must thank all of you that you are here to support the General Counsels Association of India because we are really fortunate to contribute and participate in the vision of our Prime Minister, to make India Viksit Bharat for 2047.
By 2047, our centenary of independence, we aspire to become a Viksit Bharat, a developed nation among the top 3 global economies. Our GDP could touch $30 to $35 trillion. But no economy, however large, can thrive without a legal system that delivers justice swiftly, predictably, and fairly.
So the idea is to give students an international perspective. If we become the most developed nation in the world by 2047, we cannot ignore the international perspective. So thank you again, all of you, for helping us by coming all the way and supporting our initiative, Nyaya Nirmaan and Yukti. Thank you very much.
Sitting here, who are general counsels of some of the largest corporations in the country, can all agree that the rule of law is important. We need to establish that the reform of the legal system and the institutionalization of the rule of law is as important as health or education to the social fabric of the country as it is, and the possibility of a developed country in 2047.
For the smooth functioning of any system, a strong framework of law becomes the serving ground, which, when strengthened, turns the aspiration for Nyaya into a reality and consequently leads to building a development of societal trust on the institutions.
आज 12th का बच्चा जब लॉ पढ़ने के लिए जाता है तो उसका माइंडसेट क्या होता है, और जब वो ग्रेजुएट होके बाहर आता है तो उसको किस लेवल तक शेपअप किया होता है, उसमें इंटर्नशिप का बहुत बड़ा रोल है.
We talk a lot, whether that's with government, with industry bodies, with law firms, with in-house counsel, but what we want is action. And the reason we need the action is to promote foreign direct investment in India. We want to give lawyers opportunities. We want them to be on the global stage. We want them to have the learning of global best practice and the experience of cross-border business transactions.
Indian lawyers have to now not only compete with lawyers and have to attain that standards which the international community expects, but also have to equip itself, the lawyers in this country and the legal profession has to equip itself what is happening around the world.
But I think this is also a great opportunity for Indian lawyers who would be, of course, be a part of those legal big foreign law firms who will be coming to India. And I think the Bar Council has done a great thing that if those advocates, Indian qualified advocates, Indian law qualified advocates, if they want to practice individually, they can still do it by the strength of their enrollment under the state, with the State Bar Council under the Advocates Act 1961.
I think going forward, use of technology would certainly create a lot of opportunities in the legal system. Artificial intelligence is certainly going to create a lot of favorable environment in the times to come.
So what we need to do now is next 10 years is going to be a further big sea change, and unless we change, we won't be able to deal with it. We already have with us all big law firms here, and we as Indian lawyers have to compete with you and match your prominence and competence. So what we need and which we are missing is a continuous legal education while we are working. So I think with National Law School or even GCAI, some things should be set up that there is education with regard to the new fields like digital finance, AI, space. Continuous legal education has to be there to deal with all this.
Right now, we had a tremendous opportunity with the Advocates Amendment Bill coming up, which should have actually laid 2 or 3 critical areas very clearly. One, the treatment of general counsels and in-house counsels at par with that of litigating lawyers. 2, reforming the entire education process, as we know, in terms of what it should do with regards to technology. And 3, the cross-border understanding about litigation and general awareness and understanding about doing business.
In 2024, some amendment has been made in the Arbitration Act. But again in 2024, there is one circular issued by the Finance Department. Through that circular, only for a minimum, say lesser amount, say 5 crores rupees, you can go for the arbitration. For higher amount, you can't go for the arbitration. You can't, the dispute resolution is not the arbitration. This is one of the area where I would suggest that government should rethink it.
The broader theme here, which is Viksit Bharat by 2047. So that Viksit Bharat also would mean that all the businesses would be growing, the GDP would be growing, the economy would be growing. There will be a lot more contracts, a lot more documents. There will be a lot more workload. And that is a nuance or an indirect way of looking at that your workload is only going to increase from here. It's not going to decrease. And as you go and end up building cross-border trust, you are going to have a lot of these conversations either around arbitration, either around ensuring that the justice is timely and transparent and accessible. But coming to the crux of all of this, right? So I think we all understand why this whole topic is important and why we are all here. I'll come from a very tech point of view because that's what I have done last almost 1.5, 2 decades of my life. Being an AI researcher, turned entrepreneur, and did like a couple of companies here. One of the most important parts, which I think we all have to emphasize upon, and that's what makes this particular event so exciting for us.
We are doing this panel in the context of an internship program which is being put together by GCAI called Yukti. What do you think should be the one critical course learning outcome of students who are enrolled in that program? They have to complete 4 weeks of this training, which general counsels are going to provide to them. What, according to you, should be the one most important learning outcomes that students can expect?
I think mentorship through the Yukti program it's going to lay the foundation for a lot of what we see is going to come, as proper learning on the job skill set. I think the most important part of the mentorship program will be the ability to give practical and, shall I say, day-to-day guidance on how to apply the academic knowledge that you have gained in a law school into that particular environment.
The law schools are developing fundamentals in law to the law students, and when they go to practitioners, it is complemented by the practice-related aspects. So both have to merge together. So the best way this internship program is going to help is that the students can work upon their fundamental skills. For example, here the practitioners can show how, let's say, they are structuring the transactions.
Advocate क्यों exist करता है प्राइवेट सेक्टर में या गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर में? जो पर्पस ऑफ लीगल प्रोफेशन वो उसको एक महीने में देखना चाहिए. लॉ स्कूल्स में जो हम उन्हें पढ़ाते हैं वो थ्योरी होती है. वो उसके काम से, गलतियों से या अचीवमेंट से सोसाइटी या बिजनेस पे क्या इम्पैक्ट पड़ रहा है ये हम लॉ स्कूल्स में नहीं देख पाते हैं. तो अगर एक महीने में वो बहुत क्लोजली ऑब्जर्व करे, जब वो ये समझ लेगा कि एज ए लॉयर आई हैव ए लार्जर पर्पज, वो पर्पज अगर वो एक महीने में सीख पाए, देन डेफिनेटली ऑल दीज थिंग्स कैन हैपन ऑटोमेटिकली.
The diversification within the legal profession, I think, is or should be at the core of the Yukti program. It's a very welcome program. I think skilling is very, very important. If you want to send your students and give them an exposure to the real world practices. So like it has been said just before me, litigation, soliciting or advisory or arbitration, these are three broad buckets where the law school students usually go to, right? And I think the Yukti program should have a clear-cut marking of students. You are targeting 100 students. So how many should go to litigation? Everybody cannot become a counselor. How many could go to soliciting or advisory? How many could have an exposure to arbitration, and how many could also come to the government for an exposure? There is a huge requirement within the government that I see. I've done large part of my career in the finance ministry, where I do see how the global policies are shaping and feeding into the domestic policies.
Now, time is changing. We are talking about AI. So we have to focus on legal research and analysis. One of, I would say, the outstanding point where we would say the USP, that is in Delhi University Law Faculty, we have a case method study where we actually teach them how to apply the law. But still, there is a gap. And the gap is that our student needs to have exposure to the industry. And once they have an exposure over there, they actually would learn the practicalities. So they would gain the knowledge of corporate law, they will gain business acumen, they will learn the skills of problem solving over there. They would also gain soft skills also over there, like time management, like clarity, professionalism. All these factors are very, very important.
I would want GCAI to focus on few issues before we come to this. Firstly, it's a pan-India project. And I think the whole intention behind introducing this internship program is to provide inclusivity, to help people sitting in different parts of the country come to Delhi and get the access to the best of experts in the field. So I request GCI, I know I'm speaking a little different because most of the outcomes and everything have already been pointed out by all the experts sitting here. But I sincerely request, sir, that please reconsider the timelines because not all students across the country are free during the summer and the winter programs.
I think we all recognize the fact that today for our profession to thrive, the profound principle on which it goes is that people who have come here before have the responsibility for the people who come after. This is the profound principle on which this profession thrives. Secondly, looking at the Yukti program, if you ask me as a managing partner of a firm, what does it do for a young student? I go back to what I had the opportunity as a Chevening Scholar in 96, 97, what did it do for me, or what does it do for an intern? I think it opens up the horizons. I'm not going to say, I mean, most of the panelists, especially the Arpita or Manoj, who has been a practitioner before he elected to work for the government, I think will recognize the fact that students at that age, when you're a young lawyer or going to become a lawyer.
I think we need to understand that we are still discovering the depth of how much AI is going to play. I think that's not very clear as of now. And we keep discovering every few months, every few years. So therefore, trying to develop a tech-ready lawyer is also something that needs to be recalibrated every now and then. That's point one. Point number two is that the areas where law practice is actually happening, when we call the professions of law, it's not just the litigation and in-house. I mean, these are very low-hanging fruits and are visible to every student in a law school. But as you develop in your career and move forward and move to spaces where regulations are being formulated or areas which are getting regulated, areas which we don't know how to regulate tomorrow, but we know that they are emerging. So I think adaptability as a skill and some very important key elements of how to dovetail technology and adaptability, and also to understand the changing dynamics and to be able to respond. I think some very key skill-based learnings are very important, and only people who have those skills can navigate the surprise and the high tides, and they come very abruptly.
That merit further consideration of India's damages regime. Mr. Sanjeev Gimawat, who is with us in the audience and is a thought leader in this field, recently wrote an incisive article about why India must overhaul its damages jurisprudence, where he remarks, and I quote, "In this changed landscape, continuing with a damages jurisprudence designed for a protectionist era is illogical."
So you've got to dial back to Section 74. The idea of Section 74 was actually to solve a problem, which was there in English law, which was this distinction between a penalty and a genuine pre-estimate. So it was a section designed to solve a problem, cut the Gordian knot, have a simple formula, and close out this distinction. Unfortunately, when it came to the Supreme Court in the 60s, we all know the cases of Fateh Chand, Balkishan Das, Maula Bucks. I'm not going to bore you with the judgments. The attitude of the Supreme Court was very different then from what it is now. It was, they were suspicious of an onerous burden being put on parties who were not in a position to negotiate. So you had this judgment which essentially said two things. One, they said, well, first of all, you've got to prove loss. Now, if you read the section, it says you don't have to prove loss. But they introduced this in. And then they said, not only do you have to have some sort of loss, but then you will only get reasonable compensation, and we will tell you what reasonable compensation is, and pluck out the principles of 73, push it into 74. This has happened in 63, and now our courts are stuck with that. In fact, in Kailash Nath, which is Justice Nariman's judgment, we had quite a spirited debate in another forum, and I essentially told him that I didn't agree with the judgment. And his one answer was, I'm sorry, the Constitution bench said this, I am bound. So obviously we need a change.
The issue with this entire process is that lawyers, and I'm also a lawyer, but external lawyers, they see it completely differently versus us. For us, it's always is the balance between getting our work done versus money, and how efficiently we can get it done. I think from our point of view, when we see Indian legal system, our first port of call is how to get it done. Damages is one area which is typically, if you pick up last 10 years, 20 years cases, mostly goes in infrastructure contracts. But companies like us, we want to get the work done. And how to get the work done is a challenge even with specific performance, and we have gone through multiple times. That even through specific performance, you have judgment in your hand, but party is not doing it rightly. You struggle to get it done because the intent itself is not to do it.
The era is pre-2018 and post-2018. In pre-2018, the word in Section 10 of Specific Relief Act is used may be enforced. In post-2018, an amendment has happened, and the term which replaces is shall be enforced. So the era is changed. Earlier, the specific performance was discretionary in nature. It was not claimed as a right. Now, post-2018, because of the amendment, now it is nothing but a statutory right. Yes, there is an exemption, there is a limitation. Limitations are prescribed under Section 11, subclause 2 of Specific Relief Act, and 14, Section 14, and Section 16. So if any case falls under this exemption, limitations, of course, damages can be awarded. But the primary objective is to perform the contract. So specific performance as of now is a right rather than a discretionary or a judicial indulgence.
In commercial wisdom, you don't really look for being awarded the money as an alternative, because money is invested into the whole business as an expectation that it will deliver within a certain time span of its own, and it in turn leads to much more further businesses. So interest providing, and particularly I will say in the Indian context, I mean, people feel they'll pay some interest on it, fine, we'll pay it later on, we'll find some reason, we'll delay that proceeding, and that doesn't really work out efficiently very well. And when we are talking about millions and billions in corporate businesses which are coming up, I'm really all in favor of providing for the expedition at the first instance. Interest, as definitely it has to be provided, there's no choice, and we do have the provisions.
Everybody wants to go to the higher court because there is no consequence of going to the high court, and the English law follows a loser pays principle, which, if introduced in India, you could have a situation where practitioners then really need to think about whether they want to fund their own costs as well as costs of the other party. And if you bring in that principle in a serious way, we've had courts award 20,000 rupee costs, 1 lakh rupee costs, when senior advocates who are charging much more than that are appearing, even lawyers, firms who are charging much more than that are appearing. But if you have the loser pays principle come into India probably in a codified form or by judicial intervention.
In the UK, for a claimant alleging breach of contract, the primary remedy is damages. Damages is available as a matter of right, and the principle is that the damages should put the claimant in the position he would have been in but for the breach. There is a jurisdiction to go to the court and ask for specific performance, but that is a discretionary remedy, and the court will not grant specific performance of a contract if damages would have been an adequate remedy. Situations where damages might not be an adequate remedy could be where, for example, there's a contract for the sale of a unique item, such as an antique vase, or typically contracts for the sale of land, because land is considered to be unique.
In addition to that, I would like to add that while handling the litigation, be it commercial disputes or the contractual obligations, what I would like to see while adjudicating these matters is the aspect of enforceability, whether they are able to be enforceable. If they are enforceable, time is the essence of the contract, so it is high time for us to go for law reforms and then amend Section 74, which is handling the liquidated damages, to be offered, because it is something interfering with the commercial wisdom of the contracting parties.
Our topic today will focus on how to develop India's arbitration and ADR system to support the country's policy goal of Viksit Bharat by 2047. And that is, I can see written in the background, reimagining India's legal foundations for Viksit Bharat of 2047.
The difficulty in Indian arbitration ecosystem are manifold. One are legal, one are procedural, one is of mindset. We have in India grown with the ad hoc arbitration. Since the 1940 and 1996, we have ad hoc arbitration, institutions we have never dwelt. No, it's very difficult to change mindset from ad hoc arbitration to institutional arbitration. But I think with the effort of all, particularly general counsels who are representing large section of private sector who are in dispute. Public sector undertaking is one sector. The private sector is represented by the general counsels, and today, unfortunately, we are with them. If we change mindset, it will be at least people can opt for institutional arbitration.
There was a time when the only intent on a commercial dispute was to get an interim order, and for that the courts were the best place to be in. But after 1996, when standards have been international in arbitration now, and corporations now look at three things: efficiency, cost, and execution, and the level of confidence you have in an arbitration proceeding. So if I look at the last 15 to 20 years, I think that confidence is building. Certainly, there are more clauses, arbitration clauses in contracts, but in case we are still not there, in case efficiency, cost, and execution is taken care of, I think arbitration has come to a stage when it can be an absolutely alternate to litigation and may even supersede it.
Please do not choose ad hoc arbitration thinking it's going to be cheaper, and do not rule out an institution thinking it's going to be expensive. That is point number one. Point number two is, the institution does not define the seat. You can have an SIAC arbitration in Paris, just as you can have an ICC arbitration in Singapore, where the ICC also has an office. And speaking of costs, the cost of an institution is perhaps just about 2% of your entire cost, which is going to be capped. 83% of your costs are legal costs. 15% of the costs are costs of an arbitrator. And when we speak about this institution being cheaper, that institution being more expensive, I have never heard a single lawyer say I'm the cheapest lawyer in Delhi.
I would like to actually make three salient points, having listened to other panels today and being in wonderful India. Point one, we are here with General Counsel, and there's one thing that we lawyers need to remember. Users don't want to be users. They don't really like lawyers. They don't like to litigate, and they don't like to arbitrate. Users don't really enjoy the system of international arbitration anymore. It takes a long time, it is very expensive, and it's very hard to enforce the awards, as my fellow panelists have already alluded to. Point two, and this brings me, and that's intentional, Your Honor, to the origins of ICA, because India is going to bid for ICA 2030, and I very much hope that we will see the ICA Congress coming back to India.
SIC's story is not complete without India, and I think in some way SIC has grown with the arbitration landscape in India, and very much supporting the growth of the businesses in India. And I think, we keep debating about between the institutions, after you get past the discussion about ad hoc versus institution, that which institution to choose. But at the end of the day, it's a service that an institution is providing, a service with a promise to manage your case effectively and efficiently.
Indian arbitration ecosystem is not new. It's not, people think it's the 1940 Act, which was the first act, which is not correct. It used to be the 1899 Act, which was only extended to 3 provident states. Thereafter, the 1908 CPC had Schedule 2, which was dedicated to arbitration. Then we had 1940 Act, which suffered from various problems, and I'm reminded of Justice D.A. Desai. On 29th September 1981, he was dealing with a case, Guru Nanak Foundation versus Ratan Singh. What he said is very interesting and relevant for us to look back. Interminable, time-consuming, and expensive court procedures impelled jurists to explore the alternative to the court system, and that led them to the Arbitration Act of 1914.
So over the decades, the Government of India has taken consistent steps to modernize its framework with regard to the arbitration. In this regard, the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996, with its subsequent amendments, has made arbitration more time-bound, transparent, and globally competitive. The establishment of Arbitration Council of India with an aim to build world-class arbitral institutions in India at par with other international institutions in Singapore, London and Paris. And a defining moment comes in 2019 with the enactment of New Delhi International Arbitration Center Act, now renamed as India International Arbitration Center Act. With this legislation, IIAC was established as an institution of national importance, and this declaration reflects the Government of India's resolve to make India a serious player in the global arbitration landscape.
That the way our demographics is set up, we effectively have somewhere between 20 and 25 years to become Viksit Bharat. Effectively, this is the period in which we basically have to make it. After that, we will grow old. Just like Japan, just like Europe today, we too will grow old. So this is the 2 decades in which we have to grow as rapidly as we can in the hope that we are at least upper middle class, rather may not become really rich, and that is an important thing that we need to do because this is a national opportunity for us, not just as a country, but as a civilization to come back. But in this, the legal fraternity really has to play a role. And the reason for this is, I'm afraid, the judicial system and the legal ecosystem, but the judicial system in particular, is now, in my view, the single biggest hurdle to becoming Viksit Bharat and growing rapidly.
पार्लियामेंट से लॉ बनता है, स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर से लॉ बनता है, परंतु आप सब जानते हैं कि किस प्रकार से लॉ बनता है। ऑफिस में लेजिस्लेशन ड्राफ्ट हो जाता है और पार्लियामेंट में आता है, पास हो जाता है। उस पर ना कोई डिस्कशन होता है, ना कोई डिबेट होती है। अगर इस प्रकार से हम लॉ बनाएंगे तो कोई अच्छा कानून देश के लिए नहीं बन के आएगा। हर बिंदु पे, कानून के हर बिंदु पे, हर बिल के हर बिंदु पे जो है अच्छी बहस होनी चाहिए, एक एक सेंटेंस पे होनी चाहिए, फुल स्टॉप कॉमा पे होनी चाहिए, अन्यथा वो लॉ जो है नहीं पास होना चाहिए। हम एक छोटी सी समस्या को अपने दिमाग में रखते हुए कानून पारित कर देते हैं। नहीं, कानून व्यापक होना चाहिए, पूरे देश के अनुसार होना चाहिए, देश की नीतियों के अनुसार होना चाहिए।
We have the demographic dividend in our favor. The population is relatively young. We have a rising middle class, which is very large when compared to other standards. And we are attracting huge investment, that is the FDI, in large numbers. I think in 2023 we received about $71 billion as FDI. That is really large. And this tailwind, as it were, is reflected in the legal work that we are doing today.
Today has been a very different day for us. We imagined, while we are talking about reimagining India's foundation, we imagined this day many months back, and I'm glad that we were able to put up a subject discussion on this. And let me assure all the speakers, all the various participants, that we've taken serious notes of everything that was said. And we will really come back and you'll hear a lot from us on each of the steps that has been, each of the advice that has been received today. I will not be fair if I don't thank all our sponsors. They've been behind us for more than a year now. Which only lets me believe that the path on which we are walking is the right path. There are people who are willing to support us. There are more, and as we speak, we are about 3.5 years old organization. The first 3 months, we had more criticism and less appreciation. Today, we have appreciation coming from our general counsel's community, as well as external counsel's community, as well as we speak to a lot of judges, a lot of government officers, senior government officers, who believe that the path on which we are walking is the right path. And let me assure you, as the president of General Counsel Association, we're not going to stop. We're surely not going to stop, and this is not the last event that you've seen. We today made a curtain raiser for a very ambitious internship program, and if my information is right, nowhere in the world, and let me repeat, nowhere in the world, any organization has run an internship program across law schools for 1 full month. And we assure you, it will be one of the most outstanding events that we want to do. That's what we strive. If we fail, it will be our fault, not yours. But we'll try to strive and make it a big success, because then we can replicate. Because today's India is not just the metros. We want to take internship right into the village, where a small poor man's son is also wanting to be a lawyer and wants, they can't come to Delhi or they can't come to Mumbai. The internship program has to be meant for including them as a part of the inclusiveness. It is the other dimension. I and most of my colleagues in the General Counsel Association, we go to various law schools, and we see a lot of kids who come from a lot of girls who are very hesitant. There is a self-esteem issue. We want to actually address those kind of issues and bring bright people into the mainstream, and that's the only way. I heard somebody say is that we need to build a fraternity of qualified, competent, good set of lawyers. And that's what is our vision, and we'll work towards that. Once again, deep gratitude to all our speakers, honorable judges, honorable academicians, and fellow friends who came and enabled us to pull this event off. Thank you very much.